Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the edition To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Monday. Coming off a great weekend with a lot of sports, a lot of things to get into today. As always, on Monday, I'll be recording NFL podcast here, and then immediately following, I'll record a podcast talking about the baseball playoffs, all the NHL news leading up to tomorrow night's puck drop. Penguins, Lightning, Vegas, and Seattle. So we'll talk that today and everything else in the world of sports as well. A big fight this weekend in the boxing world that really took people over. And it was one of the greatest heavyweight tilts of all time between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. So we'll get into that as well. But so a lot to get into today. But you can this week kind of on the docket. Here's some housekeeping notes. We'll have the podcast today. I'll be podcasting with Seamus. Wednesday, obviously talk about NHL opening night and everything that goes into that. Preview Wednesday night's games as well with obviously for all the Leaf fans out there in Montreal, they get kicked in that night. They start cooking gas. You got Rangers against the Capitals. Hopefully Ryan Reeves can be in the lineup because if Reeves does play, it's the game of the night. It doesn't matter if you're a Leaf fan or not. It's just entertainment. That's the game. If I had to pick one that I couldn't miss, it would be Rangers Capitals. No doubt about it. And we'll get into everything else. But also we'll be recording NFL Week 6 preview this week. Guests be named. I got a few on the line. We'll see what we can get through here. But so that's kind of the plan of attack for the week here in the podcast. And we'll see where that takes us. But this weekend in the NFL, every week has a theme of some sort. You could say some of it is upsets. It can be chaotic. This weekend in the college football, it definitely was chaotic. To me, the theme of this weekend in the NFL was kickers. Kickers winning games, kickers losing games, and then just some plays that make you go, wait, what just happened? Kickers lost teams games this weekend, point blank. Mason Crosby of the Green Bay Packers tried to lose the Packers the game, but Cincinnati's kicker Evan McPherson kept keeping him alive and giving him yet another chance to win the ball game. And boy, was it ever. It was a mix of emotions between riveting and just complete frustration, even from the guy sitting on the couch just knowing I'm going to talk about it. But you look at it and say, how is this happening? How does Tristan Vizcaino for the Los Angeles Chargers miss 2 extra points that badly? Yet in all the midst of that, how does Justin Herbert and the Chargers ball out that much and still beat the very game Cleveland Browns? How did they overcome that? How does the Houston Texans have a massive lead over the New England Patriots in the fourth quarter of a game, and they lose the game on a last 11 seconds left field goal, and they lose by 3, and Kimai Fairbairn misses a field goal and 2 extra points? You make both of those, the Houston Texans are 2-3, not 1-4. But that was the day. A few weeks ago, week 2, Minnesota's kicker Greg Joseph missed a 37-yarder to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Yesterday at the buzzer, he makes a 51-yarder to defeat the Detroit Lions. Again, it was every game. And I hate field goal kicking. I wish it wasn't a part of the game. I wish you had to go for it every time on fourth down, because kickers have so much control over games. And a lot of people say kickers aren't really a part of the team. You can make an argument that they aren't. But if we look at yesterday as a whole, obviously Houston losing a game is not that big of a deal. In the short term, I'm sure their fans are like, oh, we could have just beat Bill Belichick at home. Davis Mills looked very competent as a rookie quarterback out of Stanford. Played a great game. But then in the back of their mind, the Houston Texans fans go, well, okay, we're 1-4. this actually improves our chances of getting the first overall pick. That might be a cynical view, but it's the correct view. When you're a team that's not going to make the playoffs, when you're a team that's best chance of being 5-13, it's not going to work. So what's better? 1-16, 5 wins. I'd rather have the first overall pick every time. So in that case, you can live with it, right? You can live with it. But then we go to Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Bengals have been the Houston Texans for the past 3-4 years. They had the Andy Dalton era with AJ Green and Vontaze Burfict and William Jackson and Adam Pac-Man Jones. But then they went through a slug. They lost all those veterans. They got old and they had to get rid of them. And they've been searching for a resurgence. With the Bengals of old, made the playoffs under Marvin Lewis 5 times, losing in the wild card game every one of those times. But they still were relevant in the AFC North. But they weren't for a long time. They pivoted, but now they have a quarterback. And that's what you want as a franchise. That's how you think you can turn it around quickly. Now, as we all know, you can have a great quarterback. That doesn't mean you're going to win games. I believe Trevor Lawrence is going to be a great quarterback, but does he have a great team around him in Jacksonville? No. And how many wins does he have so far in his NFL career? All right, none. But Cincinnati has gone out there. They drafted Joe Burrow. They drafted Jamar Chase. And after not addressing an offensive line last year, after nearly getting this guy killed and tearing ACL, MCL, and LCL, they have a competency. I'll give them that. They have a good tight end, CJ Uzomah. They got Trey Hendrickson in the offseason. This team is not the pushover that it used to be. And we saw that yesterday. Cincinnati took the Green Bay Packers to the buzzer. They took them to overtime, and they had a chance to win the game. They had a chance. Evan McPherson, with 20-some seconds left, with a field goal off the upright. Then Green Bay gets the ball back. And then for the second time this season, and this is just idiotic to me, in week 3 in San Francisco, Aaron Rodgers had the ball with very little time left, no timeouts. The one thing I would do if I'm a defense, and they only need to do one thing, double, triple cover Davante Adams. I don't care how many guys you put on him. Because yesterday, Davante Adams caught 11 balls for 206 yards. He had a similar stat line against San Francisco. But what does that tell you? It means that Aaron Rodgers is only comfortable throwing him balls. Everybody else, he throws them when he absolutely has to. But you look at him, he threw for 344. 206 was Davante Adams. The next leading receiver was A.J. Dillon, a running back who caught 4 balls for 49 yards. Allen Lazard, the number 2 receiver, had 2 catches for 6 yards. So what am I saying here? Even Aaron Jones only had 4 catches for 6. He had a quiet day, good game on the ground. Davante Adams is the only guy getting the ball in that moment. He's running. It was the same exact play. Do you not watch film, Cincinnati? And they did not lose on this play. I realize that, but they should have. And the defense, allowing Davante Adams single coverage with safety help that was way too deep. Now, thankfully, Mason Crosby was on another planet yesterday. This guy had made 27 consecutive field goals prior to yesterday. And he became Cody Parkey. If you remember Cody Parkey, the kicker for the Chicago Bears and the infamous double doink. But he wasn't even close yesterday. He had 3 consecutive misses before he made the game-winning 49-yard field goal to win the game. And I think that was a mistake by Matt LaFleur. They had a 4th and inches, and they kicked the field goal. I realize hindsight's 2020, win the game, but I'm sitting there on the couch saying, there's no way I'm letting Crosby kick that field goal. He missed 3 in a row. I'm going 4th and inches, Aaron Rodgers, quarterback sneak. Let's go. Move the chains. Thankfully, he made the kick. But Evan McPherson missed 2 field goals to potentially win the game. Missed them both. He's a rookie kicker, but it doesn't really matter in the moment, does it? It's just, did you make it? Sports is a result business. Effort is very much put on the back burner. It's not about, how hard did you work today? Or, did you give it your all? Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit how much effort you put in. It's, did the effort you put in result in us winning the football game? And Cincinnati had opportunities to win. Green Bay should have won the game 3 different times. But look at the situation. Green Bay improves to 4-1, Cincinnati 3-2. It's a devastating loss for Cincinnati, in my opinion, because their odds and just their schedule is much tougher than Green Bay. Green Bay's in a crap division. Yes, the Chicago Bears and Minnesota Vikings won yesterday, but Green Bay does not fear either team. Green Bay goes to Chicago next weekend. I don't think we'll see much resistance. I think Green Bay will win that game. Minnesota, they're Jekyll and Hyde. There are games where you look at them and say, they're just absolutely incredible. They beat the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. That's not an easy thing to do. But the last 2 weeks, their offense has looked atrocious. Kirk Cousins' first drive against the Browns, touchdown. The rest of the game, he did not put up a single point. Yesterday, he only put up 19 against the Detroit Lions, a team that's winless. And you just look around and say, what? So, on the other hand, Cincinnati does have a tougher schedule. They play Detroit next weekend. I like their chances of winning that game. Again, a winless team. That's not a big statement. Then they go to Baltimore. Divisional game, not an easy place to play. No guarantee. Then they play the Jets. They should beat the Jets. Then they play the Browns. Again, you have divisional games throughout the year that you got to win. They're not easy games to win. Then they have their bye week in week 10. Week 11, they come back with the Raiders. Again, it's just those type of games, you need to find a way to win it. And unfortunately, they found a way to lose it yesterday. And another thing, Joe Burrow has athleticism. I'm not saying don't use it. You can use your legs. But another thing I saw from quarterbacks yesterday was just slide, get down, run out of bounds when you have the chance, or you're just not going to have a long NFL career. I look at Joe Burrow and Trey Lance. I get it. Trey Lance was in his first start and he wants to use his legs, but you're going to get killed. And Joe Burrow on a play, I thought he really hurt his neck. It might have been a concussion. He got hit hard. That could have been his season easily. And if he continues to put himself in those type of positions, he's not going to have a long career. He's not, because he's going to get injured, have more problems, and then he's not going to be a great quarterback, and Cincinnati's in the same damn hole they always were in. Sometimes you need to scramble, get a first down. I get that completely. But protect yourself. What does Aaron Rodgers do? He slides. Mahomes, you rarely see him put himself in a position. I'll talk about Josh Allen, how surgical he was last night. Guess what? He ran the ball. But did he ever take a huge lick? No. There are ways to do this. And I just look at Joe Burrow. I want him to succeed. He's so fun to watch. But don't put yourself in that position to have your head taken off. And he's doing it too often. Where he doesn't slide, he just stays upright, and the DB can take out his legs, and you're going for a ride. slide. Just slide. Your organization would like that too, I imagine. But nevertheless, Green Bay escapes with the win. I did think it was an impressive game from their defense. That was the thing that really had question marks so far this season on Green Bay's defense. But I like Aaron Jones in the running game. AJ Dillon's a good 1-2 punch. But I look at Green Bay. Yes, Valdez-Scantling was out of the lineup with an injury, but he's never really been a favorite of Aaron Rodgers. They don't have that wavelength. They don't have that trust. Other than Davante Adams, I don't see a guy that he trusts that he can throw the football to. That's an issue. You need to have that wavelength with somebody else because eventually defenses, even though I just lamented what the Cincinnati Bengals have been doing, will figure it out, will be smarter and do something about it. You can't give them that. You can't give Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers that much, double him. Respect your opposition. And I think teams will eventually. And does he have that guy that he trusts? Tonyan had one catch yesterday. Hasn't had a huge season so far after his breakout last year. But is it MVS? Is it Lazard? Is it Robert Tonyan? He likes throwing it to his running backs. Aaron Jones, I mentioned, had a quiet day yesterday. That's normally one of his favorite targets in the red zone. But Davante can be your stud for right now. Over 200 yards. He had a buck 86 against San Francisco. And he is the best receiver in football. I mean, he leads the NFL in receiving yards. So that tells you something about Davante Adams. But I just worry about, who's he going to throw to down the line here? Who's the next guy that he's down, in line to throw the ball to? I don't see an easy answer. And that's something that would worry me for Green Bay. Does Aaron Rodgers have wavelength with anybody other than Davante Adams? Because once defenses just realize we need to sell out to stop him, does Green Bay have enough firepower to overcome that? So, tough loss for Cincinnati. Green Bay includes the 4-1. They play Chicago next Sunday. The NFC West has really been an intriguing division. It started off red hot, where you had obviously the Chiefs to start the season. They also get a lot of publicity. You had the Broncos start 3-0. You had the Raiders start 3-0. Now, back-to-back weeks, the Raiders and Broncos have both lost 2 straight. The Broncos losing yesterday to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Raiders losing at home to the Chicago Bears. Let's start with the Denver game, because this game is really a lot of people hate Ben Roethlisberger, and I don't know why. And I'll just start with this. A while back, he was accused of some inappropriate behavior with women, and that's never okay. However, the charges were dropped, and I get it in our society now. I guess we're guilty forever, because if you're accused of something, you did it. That's not how I live my life. There are courts, there's a legal system, but I guess some people are too lazy to realize that. So, more power to them. But I look at Pittsburgh and say, all I heard was Big Ben's done and they need to go to Rudolph or Haskins. Well, Big Ben can still play. And what did he do? He proved that yesterday against a really good defense. What did he do in his first drive? Threw a strike to Deontay Johnson for a touchdown. Threw a strike. Yesterday, Ben threw for 253, 2 touchdowns. And they won the game. But maybe, just maybe, is Big Ben what he once was 10 years ago? No. And I fully admit that. But what if you have a quarterback that's not as good as he used to be? What do you need on your team? I'll tell you, you need balance, meaning run the football effectively, meaning offensive line, protect him, and also open up running lanes. and you need a great defense. And I believe the Steelers have the ability to have both of these components. TJ Watt and his brother, which I'll get to, were both monsters yesterday. We look at that defense. Cam Hayward's a dog. You got Minka Fitzpatrick on the back end. You got Sutton on the back end. These guys are really good players. Joe Hayden, when he's healthy, is still a very viable corner. Devin Bush, when he's healthy, which he was yesterday, Joe Schobert, like they got a good defensive core of players. We saw Devin Bush take down Teddy Bridgewater on that sack. The dude is a baller. Michigan doesn't produce great quarterbacks other than Tom Brady, but they do. Linebacker U is the Michigan Wolverines. But what did Pittsburgh get yesterday? Najee Harris, the 22 overall pick in this past year's draft, the stud from Alabama, ran the football 23 times for $122 and a touchdown. That'll work. And then what did he do the rest of the day? He didn't throw it to Najee Harris 14 times like he did the week prior. Chase Claypool, the Canadian, had 5 catches for $130 and a touchdown. Great game. Deontay Johnson, 2 receptions, 72 yards, touchdown. And then Najee Harris only had 2 catches. You can use him more, but he didn't have to yesterday. He was making big plays to Claypool, to Johnson. And Pittsburgh is in a very tough division. They might not make the playoffs. I mentioned Cincinnati, very good team, has already beaten Pittsburgh. Baltimore, who's playing tonight Monday Night Football. I love Baltimore. L. Jack is one of my favorites. And then you got the Browns, who I have a ton of respect for. But Pittsburgh, if you have balance, they can win football games. Big Ben is not washed when he has a little bit of help. And I just look at this team and I say they're pretty good. And again, they're like Cincinnati. They have a tough schedule, Pittsburgh. But I'm not ruling them out yet. And I'm not changing quarterbacks and trying to be just a hot take artist saying, oh, Big Ben's done. And people want Big Ben to be done. I like watching him play. They play Seattle Sunday night. Seattle's sans Russell Wilson. Thursday night against the Rams. Hurt is tore a tendon in his middle finger on his throwing hand. So it's 6 to 8 weeks. That means Geno Smith is now the QB1 in Seattle. Geno Smith hasn't started NFL games since 2017 when he was a Jet. Looked good in relief duty, but do I have a whole lot of faith that Geno Smith's going to win a whole bunch of ball games for Seattle? No, I don't. So, but what the narratives need to stop when it's all, first of all, wins are not a quarterback stat, and quarterbacks get too much blame and too much credit. Like yesterday, Big Ben played a good football game. Did not turn the football over. Check. And he was just surgical. He made the plays he had to make. But that's a good football game. There are games where you need guys like Justin Herbert to ball out like he did yesterday. That wasn't the case yesterday. Pittsburgh's defense had Denver on lock. Teddy Bridgewater was held in check. And that's what happened. And you ran the football. Now, this can happen for an aging quarterback. We saw that with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning is, some people think Peyton Manning is the greatest quarterback to ever walk on the planet Earth. His second Super Bowl, he was worse than Ben Roethlisberger is right now. He couldn't throw the ball 15 yards, let alone a 50-yard touchdown to Deontay Johnson. But what did he have? Vaughn, DeMarcus Ware, 2 Hall of Famers, Chris Harris Jr. in the back end, locking people up. And then he had a great running attack. It sounds eerily similar to what I just said. But you can have this with an aging quarterback or if you have a young rookie, this is ideally what you want. Let's pivot to the Raiders, who, like Denver, has lost 2 in a row. What happened to them yesterday? Their offense has hit the skids for sure the last 2 weeks. Derek Carr does not look like the MVP, but the Chicago Bears with Justin Fields in at quarterback. Let's look at this. The Bears, Herbert ran the ball 18 times for 75 yards, not Justin Herbert. Damian Williams ran the ball 16 times for 64 yards. Justin Fields only threw for a buck 11 yesterday. What did they have balance? And how many touchdowns did they allow yesterday? Oh yeah, just one. But Derek Carr threw for 206, threw for an interception. They ran for under 70 yards. The defense, good defense and balance. They had the ball. They controlled it, running the football. Justin Fields threw for a buck 11, but they get a win on the road. He's won 2 in a row, his starts. Is he Joe Montana? No. But again, you have a chance to win ball games when you have balance. When you have balance on your team, you have a chance. And that's all I'm saying here. For the Raiders and Broncos, what's really helping these teams is that Kansas City Chiefs are 2-3, worse in the division. That's really helping their confidence level. But they play each other next week. Huge game. Be 4-2 and 3-3 is a big deal. You know what you are. But you look on the opposite scales. Watching through 5 weeks, these two teams are tied for second in the division. I think they're the 2 worst teams in the division, however. The loss, start with LA. Yesterday's Los Angeles Chargers Cleveland Browns game was the game of the season. And normally this wouldn't be the game of the season for me because I'm not a huge gunslinger. I like defense. I'm old school. I like seeing defensive players have great games. Like I thought the San Francisco-Arizona game was really good. J.J. Watt looked like vintage J.J. Watt. But seeing 2 young stud quarterbacks and a couple great running backs and Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler for the Chargers, it had some great moments. Seeing her, after Cleveland goes down, after the Chargers go down and score a touchdown in the fourth quarter, seeing Baker Mayfield throw a strike to Njoku at midfield, he breaks a tackle and brings it back to the house. But then the Chargers respond with another drive where they go down the field. And for the second time of the day, Mike Williams is left wide open. Herbert can just dip him the ball and throw it to him for his second touchdown. He caught 8 balls for a buck 65 yesterday, both career highs. And it was just a fantastic game. It was a sight to behold for sure. And Cleveland had the ball at the end of the game. Baker Mayfield threw a Hail Mary of sorts to the end zone. Nobody could find the ball, and the Chargers took a knee and left with the victory. But both these teams are very good. We've seen Cleveland play 2 games this year where it came down to the wire, and they needed Baker Mayfield to be that guy. And in week 1 against the Chiefs, he threw an interception on the last drive, trying to get rid of the ball and avoiding a sack. Yesterday, he just couldn't find a guy in the end zone. What it tells me is that Baker is not the elite of elite quarterbacks. Justin Herbert is. He's that guy. But does yesterday's loss make me think Baker Mayfield can't win a championship? No. But I do think what it tells me is that he needs a good complement of people. Myles Garrett left the game with an injury. Jadeveon Clowney did not play yesterday. Denzel Ward left the game early. These are all defensive players. But even with 2 missed extra points, the Chargers still found a way to win this game. And you look at Justin Herbert, threw 4 touchdowns yesterday. Austin Eckler had 3, 1 through the air, 2 on the ground. He had himself a game. Baker, he was no slouch. He threw for 2 touchdowns. But you look at his production, he had Nick Chubb run 12 times for $161. Kareem Hunt ran 12 times for 61 and 2 touchdowns. So it was vastly different, the production of both guys. But I would say that Baker, this again, wins and losses not a quarterback stat. But I would look at the 2 close games that he's been in and say, you couldn't come up with the win in either one. And that's just a fact. You can't rule that. You can't say no to that. Do I still think Baker is a great quarterback? I still think he's very good. I still think he can win in this league because complementary football is something that you can use to your advantage. And I think the Browns do it in spades. They got a 2-headed monster at running back. They got, Njoku and Hooper and Harrison Bryant, all tight ends that can have big days. You got Peoples-Jones. But another interesting little fact to me about yesterday's game is that the Cleveland Browns win the game, and Odell Beckham Jr. had 2 catches. Sorry, they lose the game, but Odell Beckham Jr. had 2 catches. Now, Baker had a great game yesterday. Only had 9 incompletions. But to me, this tells me he's at his best when he's not forcing the ball. And Njoku had 7 catches for $149. Peoples-Jones had 5 for 70. Those were his 2 big targets of the day. But Baker Mayfield and Odell just may never have that wavelength. And Baker's better when he doesn't have somebody he's got to force the ball to. And Herbert doesn't do that either. I mean, we see Keenan Allen is the best route runner maybe in football, but Mike Williams had 90 more receiving yards than Keenan Allen yesterday. Keenan Allen had 6. Mike Williams, I think, had 15 targets. Mike Williams caught 8 balls, but Keenan Allen only had 9. But you still find a way to win the game. I don't think Keenan Allen's going to take that personally, that he didn't get that opportunity. That he didn't have that many balls thrown to him. Where this week will be interesting because the Browns play Arizona next weekend, who are undefeated. But how is Odell going to react to this? He had 2 catches yesterday. He likes to have the ball. Of course, he's a receiver. You don't want to run around for nothing. But you got Cardinals going to the Browns. The former Oklahoma quarterbacks will battle it out. Kyler playing Baker next Sunday. And yesterday was not the greatest day for Arizona, but they found a way to win a game, a divisional game. They found a way to win it at home. But next week's huge for the Browns because being 3-3 in that division is tough because I believe the Steelers are going to beat Seattle next weekend. That makes them 3-3. You got Baltimore. They play tonight against the Colts. Then they play the Chargers next week. Another great game where the Chargers are one of the most fun teams to watch in football. They should be 5-0. Week 2, they threw that game away against the Cowboys. It just looks more and more like an anomaly. Kind of like the Steelers beating the Bills week 1. You're like, how did that happen? But huge game for the Browns. Huge game for the Chargers as well. But you look at the Browns 3-3. If Baltimore wins tonight, they'll be 4-1. And then who knows what the Chargers, they're at home. They're hosting the Chargers next Sunday. So it's in Baltimore. Big couple weeks here. Cincinnati plays Detroit. You got to think they'll get a win. They'll improve to 4-2. Steelers get back to 3-3. Baltimore keeps winning. There's just a lot to uncover here. But I do think that Baker is just at his best when Odell's just one of the guys. And if Odell's okay with being one of the guys, if he's just another Peoples-Jones, if he's an Njoku, then I think this team will be better off in the long run. And a couple of these losses early on, I do need to see them win some of these close games. They lost to the Chiefs last year in a tight game in the AFC divisional round. They lost to the Ravens last year in a tight game of Monday Night Football. You need to win some of these tight games. Find a way to make it happen. And we're not seeing that enough. Now, for the Denver Broncos, for the Raiders, the Chargers, the saving grace for most of these teams, and I would say other than the Chargers, because they've looked phenomenal so far, is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 2-3. And to be quite blunt, they got their ass kicked last night against the Buffalo Bills. I thought the Bills would win the game because the Bills are a better team, point blank. Again, is Patrick Mahomes a better quarterback than Josh Allen? Most of the time, yeah. Right now, is he? No. To me, right now, Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the NFL. What he can do with his arm and his legs, how much he's improved year over year, is just breathtaking. They lose week 1. And even I said, oh, that was ugly. Losing to the Steelers week 1, just getting smoked. Josh Allen looked like a deer in the headlights. But you go into the next few weeks, you get better. You crush Miami. You beat Houston 40-0. You feel good. But last night it was just surgical. He led the team in rushing, ran the ball 11 times, but also threw for 3 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over. Where you got Mahomes, only threw for 272 on 54 attempts and had 2 interceptions. He led his team in rushing too. But I look at the Chiefs. Mahomes turned the ball over more than he ever has in his NFL career. That's a problem. Because when you turn the ball over, it means the defense comes on the field. And the defense for Kansas City, to be honest, is a sieve. It's terrible. They can't stop a nosebleed. They had no Chris Jones, no Tre'Davious Ward last night. I don't care who's on the field. They don't have anyone that fears you defensively. They can't stop anybody. But Buffalo, I mean, they had average running attack. Singletary ran 6 times for 25 yards. Moss, 11 for 37. But then you had Josh Allen, Dawson Knox, the tight end, who's quietly emerging as that guy that you want. 3 catches, $117. Manuel Sanders had 2 touchdowns reception. I mean, Josh Allen and him just have a wavelength. You got Stephon Diggs only had 2 catches last night, but you beat Kansas City by 18 points when your number 1 receiver was hardly involved in the offensive game plan. It tells you a lot. Last night's game wasn't close in the second half. It was over after the third quarter. And for Kansas City, your defense is not going to get any better. This isn't like you can make a bunch of deadline acquisitions. This is not going to happen. Steve Spagnuolo has got to make adjustments. I mean, the holes that Josh Allen had to run through last night were just crazy. He was running the run-pass option with just such effectiveness. And I mentioned guys like Trey Lance and Joe Burrow who need to learn how to take a hit and learn this. Watch Josh Allen's tape. He just will close off his body and he doesn't take big hits. And yet he ran the ball 11 times. Now, do I want him running the ball 11 times? No. But the Buffalo running attack is still not great. Moss and Singletary are adequate backs. But Josh Allen's so athletic and so big, I can't blame him for taking off. But, I mean, the Bills are just, they're you could argue they're the best team in football right now. But the Chiefs, let's look ahead for the Chiefs. They go to play the Washington football team. Well, Washington's not great. They're 2-3. They continue to get worse and worse. You think they'll win. Then they play Tennessee, who the Bills play this week. But the Chiefs can't stop the run or the pass. I mean, Derrick Henry could have a field day against the Chiefs because he's averaging over 130 a game this year. He leads the league in rushing. No surprise there. He's got 640 yards rushing. That's 117 more than next closest rusher, and that is Nick Chubb. But he's also got 7 rushing touchdowns. That's 2 more than James Conner and Ezekiel Elliott. But again, Mahomes isn't protecting the football. He's not valuing the football. He's being reckless, and he's gotten away with it in the past, and he's just not so far this year. It's not going well for him. And the sky's not falling, but they got real issues that they've never had in the past. Where you're like, well, that player doesn't look so good, or this could. Mahomes is not playing great football. The defense can't stop anything. Their running attack is irrelevant. And they just don't look. I mean, they played, it was a measuring stick game, and that was a statement win for the Buffalo Bills last night. They improved to 4-0 in a division that I thought would be way more competitive, but the Miami Dolphins have made a laughing stock of themselves. The New England Patriots can barely beat the Houston Texans. The Jets are still the Jets. And Buffalo looks like the best team in the AFC. I think they are. I think, like I said, I just think Josh Allen's the best quarterback in football. I think they are slightly better than the Chargers. I think the Ravens are right there, but I like Buffalo more than the Ravens. They beat the Ravens last year in the playoffs. I don't know. I like Buffalo a lot, and last night was just they lost twice to the Chiefs last year. You wouldn't have thought that after watching last night's game, because it was just a rout from start to finish. But this AFC West is interesting because you got a couple teams that are really you think that it would be the Raiders and the Chiefs, but the Chargers are finding ways to win games that normally they throw away. That tells you they got a different quarterback, they got a different team. And another thing I love about the Chargers, Brandon Staley's got some cojones. Twice on that game-winning drive, he goes for it on 4th down. But this, in the middle of the game, he went for it. On second quarter, he goes 4th and 8. Herbert. But what is that about? It means you have a quarterback that you trust. He'll go to Herbert because he's going to get the ball. He's going to get that first down. But Brandon Staley's not afraid to go for it on 4th down. He's playing to win the game. He's playing not to lose. That's the worst coaches play not to lose. Brandon Staley plays to win. And I respect the hell out of that. Because he 4th down, higher percentage play. You got Keenan Allen, you got Mike Williams throwing the damn ball. And that's what he does. I love it from Staley. But Chiefs are in trouble. And they better figure it out quick. But yes, the defense is a sieve. This is also on Patrick Mahomes. Value the football. Don't throw it to the other team so much, because you got to be aware in the back of your mind, my defense stinks. The locker room, you might not think it. When you throw a ball up and you see double coverage, you're like, I don't know what's going to get there. Don't throw it. Because guess what? The defense comes on the field and it's in the end zone, and then you got to scramble, do more, try to make more out of nothing, and then you're turning the ball over more. Also, their red zone offense is putrid. Last night, the Bills, they just stopped them. You see the Bills in the red zone, Josh Allen scores touchdowns. Mahomes isn't right now. So see how that goes. But the one undefeated team in football, like I just mentioned, is the Arizona Cardinals. They are 5-0 after 5 weeks. Yesterday was not the most impressive game. Definitely a game they had to, kind of settle into as they beat the LA Rams the week prior. That was a huge win for Arizona. But they survived a scare from San Francisco, where San Francisco was starting Trey Lance, the third overall pick, the rookie quarterback. And it was a mixed day for Trey, because you saw why they drafted him, and you also saw that he's a rookie and that he's very raw. He threw for $162, $192 and an interception, did not have a touchdown on the day. But what did he do well? Well, he brings something to the table that Jimmy just doesn't. Jimmy Garoppolo is not that athletic. Trey Lance ran the ball yesterday 16 times for 89 yards. Now, that is way too much. You're going to get killed in this league. That can't happen. But you're rookie, you're raw, you're running the run pass option, and a lot of the time it worked. He ran the ball effectively. But Elijah Mitchell should run the ball more. He ran the ball 9 times for 43 yards. You got to run some regular patterns. I mean, Trey Sermon only ran the ball 1 time. But I did like watching Trey Lance. It's fun to watch Trey Lance because he's always out there. He's so athletic. He can move the ball around. But what what it showed me yesterday is that the Arizona offense, and San Francisco does have a really good defense. Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, they played really well against Kyler yesterday. They put him in bad positions, really good special teams where they were pinned a lot deep in their own end zone, and Kyler just had to, fight for his life back there. But the Arizona defense can back it up. And, Chandler Jones had 5 sacks week 1. He's a very good defensive player. But yesterday, it was the J.J. Watt Memorial game for me, where he just was a man on a mission. He could not be stopped. The tackles for a loss, the sacks, he was just blowing people up. Sometimes you just watch a game and you see who jumps off the screen at you. That was J.J. Watt yesterday. He just was always there. He was always in the backfield, always causing havoc. And it was just a sight to see for J.J. Watt, who, you bring over, like, he's a veteran, maybe he can bring us something. Yesterday was a game where you're like, okay, there's the J.J. Watt that Arizona signed, and they're like, that's the guy we want here. And I mentioned Chandler, J.J. We also got Budda Baker, who, got the interception off Trey Lance. He's just a great safety, a little man, but he's got a lot of stature to him. He's tough. And the defense, the 17 points was all that Arizona could muster yesterday. But you had 10 points from that the Arizona defense allowed. They did enough. Kyler didn't have his greatest day. They didn't run the ball nearly enough. You had their leading rusher was Rondale Moore, a wide receiver. But you had James Conner ran 10 times for 29. Chase Edmonds 6 for 15. They ran for over 200 yards the week prior. You need to do more in the running attack for Kyler Murray. But what we did see, and this was really impressive to me, is it's so nice to have this ability. I mentioned Devontae Adams. In the clutch situations, it's nice to have that number one receiver that if it's a 50-50 ball, if you're like, just go run this route, that he can go do it. Arizona has that in DeAndre Hopkins. The Buffalo Bills have that in Stephon Diggs. Green Bay, I said Devontae Adams. I think in Tampa Bay, you could argue that Tom Brady is a few of those guys. But the best teams, there's a reason these teams are the best, because you have a receiver that you're like, okay, late in the game, go do this for me. Can you make that play for me? And we saw it late where Kyler Murray threw a couple strikes in that last drive to DeAndre Hopkins for first downs, and he was just going to him. He just said, D-Hop, yeah, you haven't had your biggest day. I haven't had my best day, but let's go win this game. Let's escape with a victory today. Divisional game. Let's move on. And what did he do? He found DeAndre Hopkins, threw it to him on the money. And he had 3 catches prior to that last drive. He had 3 catches on the last drive, including a touchdown. And that's what you're looking for. But Arizona improves to 5-0, the only undefeated team. And in that division, you look now. San Francisco is 2-3, but they got a rookie quarterback. There's going to be some growing pains. They've lost 3 in a row. So they're on a slide. And looking at for San Francisco, who do they have next week? They have a bye week. So they're off next week. They'll get a bye. We get a break, but then they come back with the Colts. The Colts are kind of Jekyll and Hyde, but who knows? It's a home game, so that could bode well. Then they got the Bears. San Francisco doesn't have a murderer's row of a schedule coming up. Then they play the Cardinals again at home. So obviously that's an important game. But 2-3, you can manage. I mentioned Seattle. No Russell Wilson for potentially till mid-December. The likelihood of that team being a playoff team is slim to none, especially in that division. It's tough. I'm not saying Geno Smith's a bum quarterback, but they got Steelers. Then they have the Saints on Monday Night Football. Seattle does. Then they have the Jaguars. So they don't have murderer's row either. But again, Geno Smith and not Russell Wilson, that hurts. The Rams are 4-1, so they're a game behind them. The Rams are still, a great football team. They played at the Giants with, unlikely, who knows who's going to be available for that game for the Giants, but the Rams. Then they play the Lions, that easier schedule for the Rams upcoming. Then they're on their bye week, but for the Arizona, at least you created a buffer. You're 5-0. You've got, if you can afford a loss, you play the Cleveland Browns next week. Obviously, you want to win every game, but you're not going to. But to have this buffer early, to be playing consistent football, to win a tight game is important for Kyler, for me. You're in a divisional game and you found a way to win it. That's important. You showed me some importance by throwing strikes at the end of the game to DeAndre Hopkins. And I liked what I saw. This Arizona team is very good. I still think the Rams are a better football team than Arizona. The Rams, Stafford still has to prove himself throughout a whole year, but I like the Rams if they can contain Kyler. So they'll play again this year. We get to see that matchup again. So we'll see what they can do to make things different the next time. But I do like the Rams slightly a little more than the Cardinals. But both teams, 5-0, 4-1, both teams are very good at this point in the season. The Dallas Cowboys continued their dominance this season, losing in week 1, but have won 4 straight, defeating the New York Giants yesterday. And the New York Giants had a tough day, losing Saquon Barkley to a low ankle sprain. He's going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks. It was announced today by Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. So more injuries for Saquon doesn't bode well for his future in New York when it comes to a second contract. And then on the second to last play of the second half, Daniel Jones, aka Danny Dimes, was rushing for the end zone, trying to sneak in, and he was concussed on the play, slammed hard to the ground, did not play the second half. Mike Glennon came in at quarterback, and the Giants lost, to no one's surprise. They were going to lose with Danny Dimes, but they ended up losing by 24. The Cowboys, the Giants aren't that interesting. They just aren't. They're not going to win anything. Kadarius Toney had his first big day. It was good to see Jason Garrett finally get him involved in the offense. So dynamic at Florida. I don't know why it took him this long to get him involved, but 10 catches, $189. Kudos. But you look at the Cowboys. This team is really good. It's really good. And I say this every Monday, but it's just the truth. Prescott threw an interception on his first drive. But after that, 22 for 32, 302, 3 touchdowns. Not doing too much, but being surgical. When he gets to the red zone, he's throwing touchdowns. Threw a 49-yarder to CD Lamb, found Amari Cooper, and found Ezekiel Elliott. But on the opposite side, they're running the football so effectively. Tyron Smith in the offensive line, Zach Martin, even Tyler Biadasz, Connor McGovern. These guys are creating massive holes. Ezekiel Elliott ran 21 times for $110 yesterday. Tony Pollard ran 14 times for 75 yards. They're just running the football so effectively. They ran the ball 35 times to Dak's 32. He has not lost a start in his NFL career when they run the ball more than they pass. What does that tell you? The Dallas Cowboys, that's what they did in 2016. They were at their best when they had balance, and that's what they have this year. If Zeke needs to wave out, you can bring in Tony Pollard. Then you can run a run-pass option with Dak Prescott. He can find CD Lamb or Amari Cooper or Dalton Schultz, who is quietly becoming one of his favorite targets as well. Dalton Schultz yesterday had 6 catches for 79 yards. He's replaced Blake Jarwin as that number 1 tight end. Jarwin tore his ACL last year, kind of lost favor this year. Schultz is that guy, but you got CD Lamb at 4 catches for 84. Amari Cooper, 3 for 60. They're balancing it up, and that's what you got to love on this Cowboys team. They have such balance. Zerline went 3 for 3 on his field goals yesterday. And they haven't, they beat the Chargers is a more and more impressive win as they continue to win. But these Cowboys just have to continue to prove it. That's all you can do on the schedule is win the games that you're in. The Cowboys head to New England to play the Patriots next week. Patriots haven't looked great, but again, that's a road game for the Cowboys. You can prove it that game. Then they have their bye week. Following that, they come off their bye and they play the Vikings on Sunday Night Football. Again, Vikings, you get Jekyll or Hyde. We don't really know. Then they play the Broncos, but they have a very easy schedule coming up. And people don't like the Cowboys. I get it. They're America's team. They very much don't deserve all the talk that they get because they don't win anything. I can think of another franchises in other sports that have the same thing. But you got to talk about teams that are good when they're good. Like the New York Football Giants just aren't a very good football team. It's pretty obvious. The Washington football team have been such a disappointment. I can talk about how I'm dreading them. Chase Young, that defense, what the hell? The Philadelphia Eagles, I still don't know. Their team, they played Carolina yesterday. Carolina's just like the Eagles. Is this team good? I really don't know. Because I thought Carolina would beat Philadelphia. They didn't. Choked it late. Didn't score a point in the fourth quarter. That can't happen. But for Philly, they play Tampa Bay on Thursday night at home. Do I think they're going to win that game? No. But Jalen Hurts, can he do enough to make this division interesting? Well, the first time they played the Cowboys, it was a blowout. Not even close. And to me, through 5 games, this division is going to be very easy because Washington's not a very good football team. They're not consistent. Heineke's not a great quarterback, and their defense, which is supposed to be the spine of this team, basically has a fractured vertebrae. The Giants. I didn't have any faith in the Giants before. Now, if Mike Glennon's at quarterback, I mean, my faith is, walking down the block. That ship has bleeping sailed. The Eagles, who the hell knows? Maybe they'd make something happen. Do I have a whole lot of faith that they will? No. So where do we go from here? What it tells me is that the Cowboys are the cream of the crop, and I think they can cakewalk to this division. And what they could do is you have an easier schedule. You got to win all your division games. You're going to have a good record. You should try to end up with one of the best records in the NFC. Then you have home dates in the playoffs. That's so important. And that crowd in Dallas they get amped for them. You want to have that option. You want to have the ability to play at home late in the season at Jerry World. So, Trayvon Diggs had another interception yesterday. The guy just continues to show that he's a stud corner. The running attack is back. Dak Prescott's playing good quarterback. There's not a whole lot to dismiss about with this football team. They just are consistent. And we'll see what comes down the line, but the Cowboys are legit, in my opinion. And, people can scoff at that, but I do think that they are one of the best teams in football, not just the NFC. Tom Brady had 5 touchdowns yesterday. I mean, just doing his thing against a Dolphins team that just has less and less credibility, and they just get worse seemingly every week. They get crushed 45-17. Mentioned the Lions. Dan Campbell, I played a press conference after the game where he was sobbing about how hard these guys work. And Dan Campbell, if you didn't think you're going to lose football games, you should have maybe looked at where you were hired. You got hired to go coach the Detroit Lions. Okay. Detroit Lions are I think they're the worst franchise in professional sports over the last 20, 25 years. Yeah, even worse than Buffalo. Buffalo's been bad recently in hockey, but Detroit, I could see if you got hired by Baltimore, who one of the more consistent franchises in pro sports. Yeah, that would make some sense. What the hell's happening here? You got hired by Detroit. If you did not think you were going to lose, then maybe they needed to give you like a brain scan and think, okay, what does he think's going to happen here? Ship up, buddy, because it's only we're heading into week 6. Guess what? Your team stinks. Yeah, you've been involved in some close games, but are you winning them? No. You got the Bengals. I think they could win that game potentially. I don't know. Rams, yeah, check please. Eagles, yeah, you could win that game. Do I think the Lions are going to go winless? No. But for Dan Campbell to be sobbing after week 5, whew, good luck, buddy. Anything else interesting on the schedule? Jets Falcons played in London. I actually watched some of that game, so tells you my problems. But week 5 concludes tonight in NFL with the Colts visiting the Ravens. Colts are 1-3, getting their first win last week against Miami. The Ravens are 3-1 coming into this game, winning 3 in a row since dropping their opener to the Las Vegas Raiders. Lamar Jackson is playing really good football. They're getting good balance, and the Colts have just been, they're riddled with injuries. Quentin Nelson is out tonight. Carson Wentz has his sprained ankles. Now it is Monday Night Football, and boy, would this be a splash for the Colts, because they're in a division where Houston's 1-4. They're not a good football team. They're in a division with Jacksonville, who's 0-5, and they got Urban Meyer and everything that gets brought along with him. They get crushed as they get. Tennessee is a good team, but they're only 3-2. They're inconsistent. Derrick Henry's, running the ball effectively. No surprise there. But, they got the Bills coming up. They got a tough schedule upcoming. They got the Bills and then the Chiefs. So could you potentially get back in the mix? Of course. So tonight's game is, more and more important. 1-4 is tough. That's a lot to come back from for the Indianapolis Colts. But this would be a statement game for Carson Wentz. For everybody that says, Carson Wentz, why did you trade for him? Why is he the quarterback of the future? A win in Baltimore would make a statement. They then play the Texans next week. So that bodes well for the Colts. Then they go to San Francisco. Not an easy game, but if it's a rookie quarterback, who knows? Then they play Tennessee. So they got important games coming up, but tonight's a huge one as well. Being 1-4 is a tough hole. You lose tonight, you have the same record as the Houston Texans. That's not a company you want to keep. Yeah, Davis Mills played well yesterday, but that team is going nowhere anytime soon. So, huge game this evening. Obviously, with a win tonight, Baltimore will vault themselves into top spot in the AFC North. They'll be 4-1. Browns 3-2. Bengals 3-2. Steelers 2-3 after picking up the victory over the Denver Broncos yesterday. But a great weekend of football. And I'll talk more football in the podcast later today about college football, just the craziness that was. And just, some of the crazy games we saw, the Red River Showdown where Oklahoma came back and Alabama losing to Texas A&M. So we'll get into all of that. I'll get into all of that later today. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the football this weekend. I just want to wish a happy Thanksgiving to all my loyal listeners out there. Hoping you guys are enjoying your time with your families or, through Zoom or whatever the hell we're allowed to do these days. But I'll be back later to talk to you guys soon. But until then, take care, enjoy some turkey, and we'll talk soon.